What's up, everyone? Today I'm doing a pretty old machine from HackTheBox called Poison, which was a medium difficulty box running FreeBSD. We start this box off with nmap, and we find a web server running a PHP script that accepts files as a parameter, and we discover an LFI. From here, you could choose to poison the logs to get your reverse shell, or just use the PHP script to list the files in the directory and use the LFI to show the contents of the password backup. I just show the contents. And after decoding the backup, we're able to SSH in as the user charix. And for pwdbackup, we look at the running processes and we find VNC running as root, and we're able to crack the password in the home directory for VNC. And once we connect to it, we connect as root. So let's get started. We start this box off with nmap sv sc oa. We'll put it in the nmap directory and call it poison, and the IP address is 10.10.10.84. I've already run this, so let's take a look at the output. And we can see there's just two ports open, SSH and HTTP, and we can see it's a FreeBSD box running PHP. So let's check it out in Firefox. We see a temporary website to test local PHP scripts, and it looks like you can input a script name here. So we'll just try one of these files and submit it. And we can see this looks like the INI file. So if we look up here, we can see that it's being passed as a parameter to file. So if we tried another file, so listfiles.php, info.php, and we put info.php here, we get information. And then there was a listfiles.php. So we have a list of files. We have browse, index, info, ini, list files, php info, and pwdbackup. So this one looks interesting to us. So if we check this out, we see this password is secure. It's encoded at least 13 times. What could go wrong, really? And looking at this based on alphanumerics and capital and lowercase and the equal sign, we can kind of guess this is base 64. So if we wanted to decode this, we could try echoing it and base 64 minus D for decode. And it tells us it's invalid input, and that's because there are spaces. So we could do the same thing. Pipe it to base 64 minus D, except before we do that, we could pipe it to sed to replace all of the spaces with nothing. And so that gives us valid base 64. And so all this is doing is it's an expression that says take all of the spaces and replace them with what is in between this next slash, and that's nothing. So if we wanted to write a script, we could just write a script called decode.sh. And looking back here, it says 13 times. So we could just set a variable and say our variable is, we can just set our variable to be this. And then we'll write a for loop. So we'll say for I in sequence 1 to 13, which is just going to run this loop 13 times. We'll echo D, and we'll say D is currently D. Okay, but before we echo it, we will echo D, which will print this, and we'll pipe it through to sed to replace those spaces with nothing, and pipe it through to base 64. And we'll set this to D. So we'll say D now equals D, get rid of the spaces and pass it to base 64 minus D. So if there's any spaces in any of the output, it will replace those spaces as well. And that's it. That's all we want to do. So we'll test this out. And we'll run decode.sh. And it runs 13 times, and it says D is currently charix and some special characters. So for us, this looks like a password, but we don't know for what user. So in order to figure that out, we might be able to find a list of users by looking in the etc password file. So we can look for LFI here by trying to go back a directory. And it says no such file or directory in user local www Apache data browse. So we would want to go back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to hit etc. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now we can see etc password. So if we look at this, we can see that one of the users at the bottom is charix. So I'll just copy this, put it in my notes. Okay, I don't like the way that looks. We'll just write a file called password. Okay. Whoops. There we go. And we'll save that. And then in our notes, we know that that is for charix, or charix. I'm not sure how you say that. Okay, so we can try to SSH in as charix. Just paste it in. And it looks like we're able to get on the box. So from here, it looks like we have a secret.zip and a user.txt. So can we read the user.txt? We can, so that's user done. And let's take a look at this secret.zip. So let's just try to unzip it. It says a password's required, so maybe we can use this password up here. So I will just scp charix at 10.10.10.84 home charix. What was it? Secret.zip. And we'll just copy it to this directory. Okay, paste the password again. And it copies secret.zip, so let's try to unzip it. And we'll use the password for charix, and it looks like it extracted secret. So if we look at secret, it's not really readable. If we run file on it, you can see it is extended ASCII text. So that might be important for later. But looking back on this box, we can start to try to look for ways to privesc by looking at any running processes. And we'll look at the ones that are running as root to see if anything sticks out. And we see VNC, which is like a remote desktop protocol running as root. So we can see if this is listening on any port by running netstat. Ooh, I don't remember on BSD netstat. Or is there sockstat on here? There is. So we can run sockstat -L, I think, to show listening. Okay. And we can see sendmail is running. And we also have VNC running on 5901 and 5801. So if we wanted to access this, we could port forward. So the way we could do that is come over here and we can SSH and forward our local port. We'll point it at 8081 on our box. And we'll point 5901 on the remote box to 8081 on our box. And that's charix at 10.10.10.84. Enter the password. Okay, so now if we run netstat on our box, we can see that port 8081 is now listening, and it's SSH. So if we wanted to try to access VNC, we could do VNC viewer on localhost. or 8081. I'm not sure if that's how you do this. Yes, it is. And it's asking for a password. So if we look at, we don't have the password. If we look at man VNC viewer, and we search for password, file from which to get the password as generated by the VNC password program, you can just pass it a password file. So we have a secret file that we already decrypted, so we can try VNC viewer localhost with password secret, and it looks like it connected us. And we can see up here we are root, so we'll give this a second to load. We'll try running who am I, and post name. There we go. A little slow. And we're root at poison. So from here we can read root.txt, and that's it. We've owned the box. So I hope y'all enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you guys next week.